Gar. Greetings, I am Tad Larkin, the lore master of Manda-LORE, and today I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the overall history of the galaxy. Due to the immense knowledge we have about the galaxy, I have decided to split this lesson among multiple transmissions, creating a multi-part overview of major galactic events from over 100,000 years before the famous Battle of Yavin to 140 years after it. Approximately 100,000 light-years across, the galaxy, as we've come to know it, contains about 400 billion stars, of which only 1/4 have been properly surveyed and charted. Space within the galaxy is divided into 7 regions: the deep core, the colonies, the inner rim, the expansion region, the mid-rim, and the outer rim, with the still largely unexplored areas of wild space and the unknown regions. Long before recorded history, a mysterious culture of beings we know simply as the Celestials held sway over the fate of the galaxy until their disappearance around 30,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. We believe these omnipotent beings exerted some sort of control on the galaxy by 100,000 BBY, and had influenced the rise and fall of countless species and civilizations. One such species, the insectoid Kiliks of the core world of Alderaan, helped the Celestials build a massive tractor beam projector, Centerpoint Station, with which the Celestials are believed to have brought together the 5 worlds of the Corellia star system. Using Centerpoint Station or similar devices, such as the Cosmic Turbine, the Celestials are also believed to have created similar anomalies, such as the Maw Black Hole Cluster, the Cathal Rift, the Voltar System, the Hapes Cluster, and the Kron Cluster. In the Outer Rim, the Sharu species began expanding their territory in the Rapha system, and made it as far coreward as Aragao. However, celestial meddling caused them to flee in fear as their borders receded, their cities crumbled, and their society advancements reverted to a primitive state for their own protection. In the northern quadrant of the Outer Rim, the Gree Enclave made use of hypergates, portals in which one can instantaneously travel between locations to link the planets of their slowly expanding borders. The Qua civilization on Dathomir employed a similar technology, known as the Infinity Gate. However, their Infinity Gates could also allow massive amounts of energy to be transported through them, creating a weapon of immense power that brought them into a territorial dispute with the Gree. A combination of celestial meddling and nearly being wiped out by the Rakatan Infinite Empire catapulted the Qua civilization into a steep decline, and the Qua themselves have since devolved into the Quai lizards of Dathomir we know today. The hyper-intelligent Kalumai of the core world of Columbus were one of the first species to achieve interstellar flight, and upon discovering the worlds of Duro and Coruscant, they were disappointed that the Duros and human civilizations were relatively primitive compared to theirs, and they returned to Columbus. As for the human species, it is believed that humans originated from the core world of Notron, or modern-day Coruscant. However, there's no evidence to suggest that they actually evolved there. We, in truth, don't really know where humans come from. All we have is early historical mentionings of the 13 nations of Zel, who fought in a fierce war with the Tong over the fate of Coruscant. As described in the ancient Tong epic poem, the Da Werda Verda, a massive volcanic and seismic event nearly wiped out both the Zel and the Tong simultaneously, and although the Tong fought bravely and honorably, they were forced to retreat from Coruscant, where they would eventually settle the Outer Rim world of Manda-LORE years later. It is a popular theory among galactic scholars that the Celestials meddled with the Battle of Zel, influencing a turning point in both human and Tong history. However, soon the power and influence of the Celestials would begin to wane. A combination of internal strife with the Celestial known as Abeloth and the uprising of the Rakata civilization against them led to the decline of the Celestials, and after Abeloth's imprisonment, they mysteriously vanished. In the wake of the power vacuum left by the Celestials, the Rakata of the Outer Rim world of Rakata Prime, modern-day Lihon, adopted an expansionist policy. Perhaps the greatest achievement of the Rakata was their invention of the hyperdrive, with which, through their attunement with the mystical power known as the Force, allowed them to traverse great distances. Using this hyperdrive and other Force-based technologies, the Rakatan Infinite Empire, as it would become known, conquered, subjugated, and enslaved hundreds of species and worlds, and by 30,000 BBY, encompassed much of the known galaxy. Utilizing the labor from their human, Duros, Drawl, and Solonian slaves, the Rakata built for themselves a structure of immense power, the Star Forge, which fed off the energy from Rakata Prime's star to create enough raw material to construct countless warships, with which they could impose their will on the galaxy. Though smaller interstellar nations would rise and fall in between the vast distances of their holdings, the Infinite Empire remained the dominant power in the galaxy for 4,800 years. Even in the midst of Rakatan rule, the humans of Coruscant continued to develop their world, and after Coruscant's resources were completely dried up, the Coruscanti turned their attention to making advancements in space travel, constructing huge colony ships, known as sleeper ships, to venture forth and colonize distant worlds. Carbonite freezing technology allowed would-be colonists to suspend themselves for their long journey at sublight speeds, and the colonists of these sleeper ships made it to several worlds within the core, including Alsacan, Corellia, Alderaan, Kuat, Rendili, and Koros, and some even made it all the way to the Tion cluster in the Outer Rim. Attempting to resolve the conundrum of faster-than-light travel, both the humans of colonized Corellia and their neighbors, the Duros, developed a network of hyperspace cannons which would hyper-accelerate a starship towards its intended destination faster than the speed of light. The only issue is, you needed another hyperspace cannon to get back to your origin point. Technological advancements weren't the only discovery during the Rakatan's rule, as in 36,453 BBY, philosophers and mystics from nearby star systems gathered on the deep core world of Tython, where it is said that the mystical energy field known as the Force was discovered by sentients in that area of the galaxy for the first time. Only individuals born with a microscopic organism in their bloodstream, midi-chlorians, had the ability to tap into this energy field and use it, and these Force sensitives, as they would become known, began to coalesce into the Order of the Jedi. Eventually, differing philosophies on how the Force should be used caused a schism within the Jedi Order, and the Jedi split between the followers of Ashla, aka the light side, and the followers of Bogan, aka the dark side, and tensions between them boiled over in 25,793 BBY. The Force Wars raged on Tython for 10 standard years, and the clashes between the followers of Ashla and the followers of Bogan were so titanic that they ended up ruining Tython in the process. After the Bogan were defeated, the followers of Ashla left Tython aboard sleeper ships, where they would colonize the Outer Rim world of Ossus 730 years later, founding the Jedi Order we know today. Long before core worlders even knew what the Force was, in the Outer Rim, the brutish Sith species of the arid world of Korriban were already strong in the Force, and when a failed attempt to invade Korriban was launched by the Rakata in 27,700 BBY, the Sith were more than capable of defending themselves against the Rakatan's Force-based technology. The Sith King Adas then used captured Rakatan warships to expand his territory, establishing Sith colonies on the nearby worlds of Ziost, Malachor, and Tund. However, outsider contact with the Sith civilization wouldn't happen until several millennia later. The Rakatan Infinite Empire wouldn't enjoy dominance over the galaxy forever, as around 25,200 BBY, a nasty plague that affected only the Rakata wiped out billions of their species, and those who survived the plague had their ability to use the Force severely diminished. With the Rakata weakened, their subjects saw their opportunity and soon revolted. That, combined with the civil war on Rakata Prime, reduced the Infinite Empire's holdings to a mere swath of star systems in the galactic southwestern quadrant. The Infinite Empire was at its end. Remnants of the Rakatan's stranglehold on the galaxy are still visible today, as on the mid-rim world of Kashyyyk, Rakatan meddling caused much of the world's ecosystem to hyper-accelerate in growth, resulting in the massive warshear trees that the native Wookiees call home today. The Outer Rim world of Tatooine was once a pristine tropical paradise before the native Kamanga revolted against their Rakatan masters, who subsequently bombarded the planet's surface until it was nothing but glass, resulting in the arid world we know today. Sometime after the Infinite Empire's collapse, the slug-like Hutt species began expanding from their native world of Varl, carving out their own empire in the Outer Rim, conquering worlds and subsequently enslaving their populace. The Hutt Empire was built upon the backs of their slaves, and through their expert dealings became lords of the criminal underworld as well, ensuring the survival of Hutt space long after the collapse of both the Galactic Republic and the Galactic Empire many millennia later. However, the Hutts weren't completely unchallenged in the Outer Rim, as, in the Tion cluster, King Zur VIII descended from the human colonists who came to Tion on the sleeper ships I mentioned earlier, began to expand his kingdom, and by his death in 25,130 BBY, the kingdom of Kron had encompassed much of the Tion cluster. Zur's heir, Zim, earned the mantle the Despot after expanding his father's kingdom to nearly 4 times its size through sheer military might, building monuments to himself on Desvro, constructing lavish palaces on Roxas Prime, and hoarding treasure in the vaults on the planet Dalalt. By 25,100 BBY, the empire of Zim the Despot entered into a territorial dispute with the Hutt Empire, after a continued expansion by Zim began to encroach on Hutt space, prompting Cossack the Hutt to take military action. Cossack managed to lure Zim into 3 decisive battles on the contested world of Vontor, where Zim's war droids slugged it out with the Klatooinian and Nikto slave armies of the Hutts, and despite being sure of himself, Zim lost the 3rd Battle of Vontor, and was subsequently captured by Cossack and paraded through the streets of Varl in chains. By 25,000 BBY, Corellian scientists finally managed to successfully replicate and improve upon the Rakatan hyperdrive, allowing for vast distances to be traversed within mere days rather than the months to decades transit time offered by sleeper ships and generation ships. Trade and transit between the core worlds was now much easier, and the idea of a democratic union of planets was soon put forth. The planets of Coruscant, Corellia, Duro, Alsakan, Kuat, and Alderaan became the core founding members of the Galactic Republic, and through exploration and diplomacy would expand their borders, accepting new member systems into its fold. That, however, is a subject for another transmission. This ends my findings on the pre-Republic era of galactic history, and in the next part of this multi-part series, I will focus on the beginning of the Old Republic era. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.